So I've been seeing a lot of people on the internet talk about porn like it's such a bad thing. You shouldn't date someone that watches porn. Of course, there's a lot of negative aspects of watching porn. It's very problematic, very unrealistic. Most porn, but not all porn. Hear me out. But I want to kind of, see both sides of it because I have done a lot of research on the topic, and it turns out that there are actually positive aspects of watching porn, some types of porn. So I'm going to start off with the negatives, what research says about what it does to your brain, and also how it can be pretty bad for relationships in some ways. Life's kind of all about balance. So I'm going to talk about when it is a problem, when it becomes a problem, and I'm also going to touch on how it can actually be helpful for an individual or someone in a relationship. Let me close the window because it's loud out there. So 70 to 80% of men use porn and 32% of women use porn according to research. And it turns out that it's 25% of all search engine requests. And this has gone up since COVID, unsurprisingly. So just so you know, in terms of the research, obviously this research can't apply to all people because a lot of these studies do have mostly probably self-selected participants, mostly from surveys, that kind of thing. It's not generalizable to every individual. This is what research has shown for the participants that have spoken on these topics. For those who report high porn use, they actually have an overactive part of their brain that's responsible for rewards, which is the striatum. I think I'm saying that correctly. So this is the part of the brain that is very much involved in processing arousal. This can actually lead to somewhat of a drug-like addiction to porn. And I'll get a little bit more into that later, but when you watch porn, it does release dopamine, same as when you have sex with somebody, that also releases dopamine. Something I've definitely heard about in a lot of research is that watching porn is associated sometimes with more aggressive behaviors. And when you watch certain kinds of porn, there is a lot out there that's very aggressive, very unrealistic. A lot of the time it's like a man dominating a woman type of situation. And it shows you all these things that women mostly don't actually like, they're just acting. So if people watch that more often, especially from a young age, they might end up modeling that behavior and becoming more aggressive. Keeping in mind that porn can be associated with violent crime, this is important for us to keep in mind. There was a study that I read that showed an overall significant positive association between pornography use and attitudes supporting violence against women in non-experimental studies. We do definitely need to keep in mind that when you are exposed to porn at a young age, you're more likely to have maybe aggressive behaviors and also just a very morphed perspective on what sex is supposed to be. Generally, when you look at porn that you find right away when you go on Pornhub or whatever, you're not going to see the kind of porn that actually shows you the way you should be pleasing your partner. None of them are really teaching you how actually to please your partner. And there's also all these special effects, like women who are squirting in porn. Generally, they're using some kind of douche to make it look like they're super soaking, because that's actually not how squirt looks. For men, they are making it look like they ejaculate more than they should. Generally, they're selecting men for porn that have higher length and width penises than what is average, which is 5.4 inches or something along those lines. It's just not realistic. So if you've never had sex before and the first thing you're seeing is this porn, then you're probably thinking that, oh wow, sex is supposed to be aggressive and women like to be touched like this, and oh, I need to do this for a man to like me, that kind of thing, which is very, very false. Like I mentioned close to the beginning of the video, watching a lot of porn doesn't necessarily always mean that you have a problem. I'll get into more of the positives soon, but let's think about really when does it become kind of like an addiction or just a problematic behavior. Let's say you start preferring watching porn over having actual sex with a partner and you're just not enjoying sex as much. That could definitely lead to some issues interpersonally, psychologically. In general, if it's impairing your functioning, this is generally what an addiction means. So let's say you're not going to work on time, you don't feel like leaving your house, you just want to masturbate, you just want to watch porn, you're just looking for that dopamine rush. That does become a problem. Because porn is similar to a drug to the brain, this also means you might actually develop a tolerance. This means that the certain kind of porn that you were watching before is not doing the same thing for you. And then you're looking for things that are a little bit more extreme. And that does become an issue sometimes, especially if you're watching more vulgar things that are impacting the way you think it's okay to touch somebody. Especially when you're young, because we see this correlation between individuals watching porn young and showing aggressiveness or stating that aggressiveness is okay in a relationship when really there shouldn't be anything like that. In general too, when you're watching porn too much, there might be somewhat of a dysphoria. There's been research on postcoital dysphoria. This could happen after masturbation or after sex in general, but let's say you're masturbating all the time and watching porn all the time, this actually might lead to a state of feeling like you're depressed. And I've been doing more research on this recently because it's interesting. A lot of the time when you think, oh, after you have an orgasm, you're feeling good, oxytocin gets released, this is true, but some individuals actually do get postcoital dysphoria. So this might be more prevalent if you're doing it more often. For individuals that are watching porn early, let's say females, for example, they might actually think that, oh, it's okay for somebody to do that to me. Oh, I should like it when someone's going rough. They don't have any kind of proper sex education because let's face it, we live in America. The sex education isn't very good, which is why I'm doing this right now. But a lot of people do turn to porn, unfortunately, to learn about sex. And if that's what they're seeing first, like the kind of stuff you see as soon as you go on the web, that's not good. Because I want to get more into this when I get into the positives, but you know, I've seen porn that's really not that bad. I've seen like realistic porn. Generally, it's like woman on woman porn. The younger you are, and then you see this kind of portrayal of what sex is supposed to be, the more it can have a negative impact on your self-esteem and your relationship. So Billie Eilish has actually spoken on this.
I used to watch a lot of porn, to be honest. I started watching porn when I was like 11. Wow. And, you know, I didn't understand why it was a bad thing. I thought that's how you learned how to have sex.
She started watching porn thinking, oh, I should like this aggressive kind of behavior. This is what I'm supposed to be attracted to.
The first few times I, you know, had sex, I was not saying no to things that were not good. And it's because I thought that that's what I was supposed to be attracted to.
I love her. She's amazing. But this kind of goes to show that, you know, if porn is positive at all for people, which I do believe that it is sometimes, it is definitely not appropriate at that age. Billie Eilish started having nightmares about sex because of porn. So that's something we should keep in mind, especially like as we are parents or become parents, to do our best to keep the porn away from our kids until they are a certain age at least, because kids are getting phones earlier and earlier these days and it's hard to really stay on top of that. I can only imagine. I'm not a parent, but I'm assuming that must be kind of difficult with technology these days. Like I was saying, of course, there's a lot of negative impact of watching porn on the brain, on the way that we act, especially if it's something that we're exposed to at a young age. But what if it's not all bad? What if there's a way to combat this with education? Because if you are properly educated and you know that this isn't realistic, if you know this is just a performance, you might be able to actually use it for good. And like I've mentioned, finding a realistic video, like a realistic pornographic sexual video, it takes a while. Like I have found some. Like I said, it's generally woman on woman because I'm bisexual. I do like that kind of content. It's really hard for me to find like a heterosexual pornographic video that seems realistic. Like I have seen some videos where it's like, I don't think this would be harmful to anyone. This is two people pleasing each other. So let's talk about the benefits of watching porn, because no one ever really talks about this, not enough anyway, because it really can be beneficial. Based on what the research is saying, okay? It's not my opinion, but I have developed an opinion where it's like sometimes good, sometimes bad. So let's say you're by yourself, or let's say you're with your partner and this is a healthy relationship that you have together. Let's say. And you know this is not realistic. You know this is actors portraying a fantasy. It is a proven fact that pornography increases arousal. So for individuals that are having a hard time getting aroused, or individuals that are trying to kind of get into that mood, it can actually be arousing and it can increase desire and arousal. And that's a huge issue, especially among women in society, is not being able to get aroused. Sometimes certain kinds of porn can be normalizing for individuals of the LGBTQ community. You know, there's a lot of different kinds of porn out there. Like I was saying, my favorite kind, I think we already know already, is woman on woman porn. If there's woman on woman porn that is that's made for women, like Balesa Plus that I've advertised on TikTok before, then there's really nothing wrong with that if you're using that to masturbate. If it's harder for you to get that sense of arousal on your own, watching a woman on woman porno while you're taking care of your needs, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The problem is, like, if you start comparing your body to theirs, a lot of the time vaginas on porn isn't actually like portrayal of an actual vagina. I'll link below a labia library so you could take a look. There are so many different types of labia majora, labia minora out there, and porn doesn't do a very good job portraying what different types of vaginas look like, unfortunately. But for individuals with the LGBTQ community, it might be kind of nice to see like a realistic pornographic video. Like I've said, I've seen them. I can tell the difference. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty good at it. Research shows that women that use porn have higher sexual arousal and desire. And research also shows that it can increase your sexual satisfaction when you watch it with a partner. However, research shows that the attitude that the couple has about porn really impacts whether or not it's helpful, which makes perfect sense, right? Obviously, someone who's like, oh, porn is the worst, and I can never date someone who watches porn, or oh, it's terrible, it's sinful, oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, if you have a completely negative stance, like you're only focusing on the first half of this video, then yeah, of course, you're not gonna enjoy porn. Yeah, you don't even really need the research to say it, but the research backs it up. I actually wrote my dissertation on the importance of talking about sex, and there were a bunch of articles that I read that pointed this out. Billie et al. 2019 conducted a study that found how watching porn with a partner can increase sexual satisfaction among both individuals. They found that watching pornography may improve sexual satisfaction since it presents couples with a variety of sexual activities that they can try and promotes different ways to have sex. So it kind of gives you like the sense of variety and fantasy that can be helpful sometimes. In general, porn can be helpful in terms of exploring what you like, knowing that it is just acting. You might, for example, be able to watch a video of a woman pleasing herself, one that's actually doing things to herself and not faking the feelings and the responses from touching herself, you know, really kind of searching for one that like, okay, this woman really looks like she's enjoying herself. I do have a video on how to tell if a woman's having a real orgasm, so if you want to check that out, I think I made it like a year or two ago, so that can give you a little bit of an idea if you've never watched porn and you can't tell the difference between that real orgasm versus that fake orgasm. But if you're watching a woman do it, it might give you a little bit of insight on how to do it yourself. It might get you in the mood as well. I'm actually very lucky that I was introduced to this website called Beducated. They actually have sexually explicit videos where you can watch instructions on how to please yourself, how to please someone else. They have videos on giving oral, all these kinds of things, and I've promoted them on TikTok. This isn't like a sponsored video at all, but I figured I would link them below because they have some good content. It's like sexually explicit content, kind of like porn, but it's realistic and it's literally showing you and walking you through what to do. So I would love to hear below your thoughts on this. I know it's a controversial topic, and I've just heard so many people say, oh, you shouldn't date someone that watches porn, people that watch porn do this. And as a future sex therapist and 6th-year doctoral candidate, I find it very important not to judge people. Like, people like what they like. Porn isn't all bad. I think it's really important for me to look at this as not a black and white thing. Of course, that anything that you do too much is going to be negative, right? If you're not functioning, if you're not having sex with your partner, you're watching too much porn, like I was saying earlier, if it becomes like an addictive behavior, then you're doing it too much. Take a break. However, if you use porn from time to time to get aroused, to masturbate, that kind of thing, and you're not overdoing it, if you're not comparing yourself to the individuals in the video too much, I don't really see anything wrong with that. Like I said before, Bellesa Plus is a porn site for women, made by women. There are some unrealistic body types on there. However, there is, you know, from my perspective, more real orgasms, which I think is really important. So yeah, I don't judge people because they like porn. I don't agree with people who are saying don't date somebody because they watch porn. Doesn't mean that every single man or individual that likes porn is into aggression, is going to be violent, has misogynistic views. No. Of course, there is a correlation and there's a problematic issue there with people that are exposed to it too young or might use it too often. However, this does not mean that every individual that watches porn has those qualities. So be careful when you're hearing people on the internet say that kind of thing. You can really come up with your own kind of determination based on the research and just trying not to generalize, because some people, they be lonely. Some people, they don't have a partner, and sometimes it's fun to watch some fantasy play while you're touching yourself. No shame. No shame in that game, in my opinion. I mean, I wouldn't take it as far as Randy from South Park, because that episode...
And fart porn in there? Oh, that's got it. Oh. Oh.
He goes a little cray-cray. But other than that, all power to you. Just do not replace porn with proper sex education. And if you want to get more educated on sex and relationships, you should definitely hit that subscribe button. I also post on TikTok daily and Instagram Reels, lots of sex education, psychology facts, and more. So I hope you liked this video, and I hope to hear your thoughts below. Thank you for watching.